In this video, we're going to look at rear suspension, rear forelink, and maybe a bit of CAD. Well, new video, new set of clothes. For any of you wondering if I was going to get a set after the last video. So, we've got a standard t-shirt, we've got some flame retardant trousers, although they do kind of make me look like a bit of a bin man. Oh, and before you notice, we've also got some new shoelaces. So yeah, we're on to a winner in this garage. So plan of action today is to, as I said before, we're going to sort out kind of the rear axle brackets forelink. If you're old enough to remember Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier. I think it was Blue Peter, it might have been Art Attack actually, that's even older. But yeah, anyway, so I've made this, I'm going to show you how I made this, what the hell this is, and how it's going to help me. So calculating whether I need clearance around here, normally what I would do is just get it laser cut and do a load of measuring. However, because I've got all these programs and I've now got a 3D printer, I've designed it in CAD and then I'm going to export it over to Autodesk Fusion, which I'm going to hopefully open now. Bring it in here, going to just make this probably like 2mm thick, just enough. Go 3mm thick. Chuck that into the 3D printer software. Dead quick to do this, which is there. So that is it. We're going to slice it, send to the printer, and then we'll knock the speed up because it runs up. This printer we've got here is printed at like 166%. So we're just going to smash it through the quickest one. It'll be ugly, but we don't really need good quality on this. It has one printed earlier, but it obviously doesn't have the clearance on the back. So yeah, this kind of is no good. We need a new one. So I'm going to chuck the template on the axle. So that will sit somewhere like this. And then on the rear of it, the coilover now can sit nicely. So I'm going to have a bar that runs from one side to the other chassis for this to obviously bolt through. So we'll make that soon. And it's going to have 3 adjustability sections in this. So I'm going to have like a top, middle and lower to be able to move it like that. If I decide on towing with it, I can move the coilover on nice and high and have more kind of suspension travel. And then on the front, we're going to have obviously the forelink bars, which will connect through here. It's become pretty evident I need to get the roll cage bender back out. I'm not going to have clearance on this rear axle, which is annoying. So I'm going to try and move the chassis across, drop the cage bender in, and we're going to try and make up the rear section of the frame. It's not what I kind of wanted to do just yet, but it is what it is. So right, so that was an absolute nightmare. If any of you are going to be bending, don't follow the way I was doing it, as in with my back. But I'm struggling around stuff on the floor, and yeah, this is ridiculously hard to bend. It's 2-inch, 2.63mm, I think. It's the one that's around 3mm. And yeah, that manual bender is, if I had hair, I would have lost it by the end of that. So yeah, we've either got some massive handlebars, or we've got a pretty cool rear brace. So yeah, I'm going to clean it up now, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. roughly chucked in at the minute. I've put a bit of steel across there to act as kind of a stop, just to make sure that the rear of the cross member doesn't come up any higher than the frame rails. The reason being is because I'm trying to avoid to cut into the back of the fiberglass floor as much as possible. I may need to do a small section where the pumpkin is for clearance on the body, but I'd rather do a small section like that than a massive section kind of for all of this. So that's why that's kind of across there, and why the cross member has a slight downwards angle near the back. Now, because that has an angle on it, I need to mark the top of it here, and I need to then obviously go 90 degrees and put in my bosses. Now, these are 1/2 inch welding bungs or bosses, and they're going to be the top part of the coilover. So they're going to be where the top coilover bolts straight through. So we'll get those cut out, welded in. Cross member's been just dropped in loosely, it's not welded or anything. Now the reason being I haven't welded anything is because I'm going to be running the chassis as a raked frame, so it's going to be higher at the back than it is the front. And with that in mind, obviously I need to have this twisted ever so slightly to compensate the top coilover mounts, so nothing can be welded in until I've got the frame basically sat at ride height. So that's that done for the time being. The second thing is I've kind of worked out the bump stops. I'm going to be running something that resembles this, but I'm going to have to draw it up in CAD. But yeah, basically it's going to be a plate that sits underneath here with 2 gussets, and then that's going to leave a bump stop there and there. And the reason it needs to be there and there is so I can get the axle as high up as possible, but also clear the breather on this side. And then with that in mind, I'm also going to be adding in, again I can't do this because I need to know the rotation, but we're going to have some extra tubes off this rear cross member that are going to tie into the chassis a bit further forward. And the reason being is because I'm planning on towing off the rear of this, so obviously it would be nice to have just a bit more kind of meat from this rear cross member into the frame a bit further forward of the axle. As I can't do anything on the rear, it makes sense now to focus my efforts on the front and trying to drop the engine in. The reason being is so I can look at maybe making a gearbox mount, and that additionally is going to work out as kind of the front cross member. So the plan is to cut out this brace here, the long one that's on the chassis at the minute, and replace it with this CDS like this. We're going to weld it in that orientation, which should allow me to poke the gearbox underneath it. And then, yeah, we can kind of work out where the engine's going from there. That's the plan. However, I don't realistically have room for the engine crane, so we're just going to see how we get on. So the engine is in, if only it was that easy. Now the problem I've had is basically working out kind of heights and angles of stuff, because I don't know my final frame kind of height in terms of running height. Now the reason I don't know that is because I've never messed around with one of these frames and I haven't built the frame on CAD myself. Normally I have measurements and stuff I can go off. At the minute I haven't got a clue how that front end sits. Without knowing how the front end sits, I don't know how the rear end sits. So I've been putting it off, but I think it's now time to grab some chrome work from the house, assemble the front, dry assemble it all, and work out where the front sits. Then I can work out where the rear sits, and then with that I also then can start to crack on with knowing where the engine sits, make the engine mounts, make the gearbox mounts, and then weld in the panel, or the rear crossmember shall I say, that I've made today. So I'm going to leave the video here. In the next video I'm going to start assembling some nice shiny chrome work, so stay tuned for that. If you watch this final video, again, appreciate you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video hopefully. Peace out.